Hello guys, next topic we are going to talk about is in the infrastructure layer, how we integrate it with Refit, how we communicate and we can um, use third-party services or external services with Refit as a HTTP typed client. Okay, so for example, most production bugs in microservices integrations are not business bugs; they are HTTP bugs where we can mishandle headers, serialization, timeouts, and retries. Okay, so Refit help us to turn HTTP integrations into something that looks like real code. Okay, typed, maintainable, and testable. We use Refit to integrate internal microservices and external providers. We integrate what we have with external providers because it let us define typed, clear, maintainable HTTP client. We do not need to create a custom HTTP client, for example, or n HTTP clients for n external providers and or a factory or so on. We have a simplified version to do that with this library with Refit, and it's very good instead of manually constructing request with HTTP client, because for example we have to instantiate an HTTP client. We define the interfaces that represent the HTTP contract. For example, the main part of the Refit is that we have an interface like a contract, for example, that we have in the application layer, where we define the endpoints that we are going to consume, the verb and so the request, the models and so on. And then of course we also have other things like the configuration, the handlers, the settings that perhaps we are going to have in our Azure App configuration, our API client that uses the interface of Refit and so on. So the contracts becomes code. Uh, so, um, if we can say why we use Refit, okay, we have four big benefits. We have less duplicated code, we have explicit contracts, we have improved testability, fewer serialization and header errors, and with this is like we stop repeating request building logic in every service. The interface is the contract. The endpoints, the routes, the DTOs, everything is visible and structured. Okay. Because the client is an interface, we can mock it in the application layer, and fewer serializations and header errors. That's because the setup is centralized and consistent. We have JSON options, content serializers, headers, out handlers. We have all together there. Okay, basically, fewer. It works on my machine integration bugs. Okay, so what is the alternative? The alternative is doing everything manual as we did anytime with HTTP client. That it's very good. It's okay. It's all customizable. But for example, we have to build all the requests. We have to add all the headers always. We have to handle the serialization. We have to handle the authorization, the timeouts. This approach spreads logic everywhere. We repeat everything. We create drift and make debugging painful. So, how we configure Refit in practice, for example, we configure Refit using what we already know, that is HttpClientFactory. This gives us centralized control over timeouts, common headers, authentications, and avoiding socket issues. Okay, so with a stable production ready HTTP pipeline. In a real project, for example, in a real microservice, in one of our services, we have a dedicated configuration class that registers external clients. For example, we had a configuration per external provider. We have message handlers for cross-cutting. We have a Refit client registration, and we have a authentication as a handler, okay, and an adaptation layer. What I try to mean with this is that, for example, we bind the configuration for the provider. So base URLs and settings are controlled through configuration and environment. With the message handlers, this is key because it's cross-cutting concerns that shouldn't be live inside the endpoint or the business logic. This belongs to the HTTP pipeline. The Refit client registration, we register there the Refit client. Okay, we configure custom JSON serialization, and we configure the real HTTP client with the provider space address from the configuration. We attach the authentication part using some handler, so the authentication is always applied consistently. Okay, and that's it. What I am missing inside each external service directory, we could have, as I said before, the API client, the configuration, the handler, and any support code. So all the integrations are isolated, testable, and maintainable. Okay? So what's the payoff? When we combine Refit, HttpClientFactory, and handlers, we gain clearer contracts, fewer runtime errors and surprises, consistent authorization headers, controlled timeouts, and easier debugging. Okay? So that's it. I hope it's a very useful tool. It helps us a lot in our teams. So especially the part where Refit turns HTTP contracts into typed interfaces, and we say and we have a like a centralized configuration for each one, and we not repeat code instantiating every single HTTP client. So hope it helps. Have a good day. Thumbs up and subscribe.